All right. It looks like we are live. So, hi there. My name is Peter Murphy-Lewis. I'm the Director of Marketing at Experience Care and the host of LTC Heroes, the podcast. And that is my 5-year-old, Quentin, in the background. I'm joined today by Cameron Zagar. Cameron, thanks for joining me. Can you tell me a little bit of what you do at Experience Care? And then I'll prep the conversation why we're talking about staffing today.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. Nice to be here. I started by taking your podcasts and kind of converting them into blogs and articles that we thought would be valuable for people in the industry. Since then, I've written a couple of white papers and done some case studies, and we're just trying to give value to people looking how to better market their homes and to deal with certain crises or staffing issues as much as possible.
I know that I can speak for you and the rest of. One second. Quentin, you gotta be quiet, please. I know that I can speak for you and for the rest of the team, and that we feel really empowered here at Experience Care because our CEO, Jason Long, has told us to go out and find the biggest challenges and create as much content that would be helpful for everybody, whether they're a customer of Experience Care or not. And that leading challenge, as you know, from 2021 was staffing. I believe that just in the last 6 months that your team on the content side has written more than, I want to say, 60 pieces of original content. We've done more than 50 blogs. We've done more than 50 videos on YouTube. Hold on one second.
Yeah, I mean, staffing really, Peter, like you said, has been one of the focal points of that content that you described. And just some stats that our content teams kind of dealt with a few times is, according to an article published by Health Affairs earlier this year, last spring, if you will, 2021, the annual turnover rate for nursing homes is a staggering 128%, and 94% of nursing homes are struggling with staffing, according to a survey from the American Healthcare Association. So, yeah.
And that rings true, Cameron. I know that a lot of the people on our marketing team send messages to long-term care executives over LinkedIn and email, and we poll them every single month, and we ask them, what is your biggest issue, and staffing is one of them. So the stats that you say might not line up with your own facility or known organization. Those might sound a little bit alarmist, but they are true in general, and everyone's aware of that. The 3 things that I wanted us to highlight, or maybe the 4-ish things that I wanted to highlight, is I wanted to talk about what some of the podcast executives have said about staffing. I want to talk about a little bit about some of the blogs that you've read and written up, talk about the docuseries, and then also talk about what Experience Care has been doing. Where would you like to start, Cameron? What's your favorite one to start off with?
Well, we can start with the blogs, and it's just so interesting to see some of these great leaders and thinkers in the industry and how they're trying to get creative. And I remember, like, Gretchen Brown, for instance, mentioned some tips for, because it's not necessarily the most appealing job to work in a nursing home. It's very difficult, and the pay isn't. Let's be honest. It's not necessarily in accordance with the amount of effort and kind of psychological toll it takes on people. People do it because they love it, because they love our seniors. So she mentioned about outreach, and she mentioned some tips about word of mouth and building a presence in the community. So, what we're trying to do is kind of take those interesting guidelines and then have research that backs it up to present people with a compelling way forward.
And most everybody in long-term care knows who Dr. Bill Thomas is. He's a well-known, expert, influencer, and he was on LTC Heroes, and he had what might be considered a much more controversial opinion. And I'm paraphrasing him, but he said that the system is broken And one of the multiple reasons that we have a staffing crisis today is because it's been a two-party system. It's been a relationship between owner and operator. And now, in order to get employees and frontline workers engaged, they have to be included in that conversation. Now, that might be, a little bit scary for some of the owners or operators who might be listening to this or have read our blogs or listened to that podcast. Might even be unrealistic, or some people might say it's idealistic. But it's an opinion that at least has to be included into the conversation. Is there anything else that you would like to highlight? The other thing that otherwise I would like to talk about one of the things we did with becoming a CNA and why we think we should highlight that.
Yeah, before we move to that, just real quickly, just today we published something on LTC News. Charles Oliver, our director of customer success, was talking about the staffing issue and the need for the government to get more involved in terms of establishing ratios and similar to what Dr. Bill Thomas was talking about, and how the more transparency in terms of how profits are divided, so that we could perhaps get higher wages for these people who are really working tirelessly.
That kind of leads into the topic of why I went to become a CNA in the state of Kansas. And I'm gonna go back to about February of 2021. Jason Long, our CEO at Experience Care, and a number of other management said, wouldn't it be amazing if somebody on the marketing team went and did what CNAs go through and use that as a tool to encourage anyone who's 18 years old or 30 years old. You might be a stay-at-home mom. You might be someone just coming out of college. You might be someone on the way to becoming an LPN. Sorry for all the background noise. And let's show why CNAs, one, it's challenging, but it's extremely rewarding. And that's exactly what we did. So in October of 2021, I went and signed up to become a CNA. It was an intensive course. Cameron and Victoria and Lena and Bruno had to take most of my work at Experience Care and LTC Heroes, but we documented all of it. And the very first episode of that docuseries that was with the intent of attracting people and recruiting people to our industry to help with staffing was published yesterday. So we'll put those in the show notes. And Cameron, I know that you have worked a lot on that. Was there anything specifically from that process or the research that you were doing or you helping with the videos that stood out to you in my experience from an outsider?
Yeah, I mean, what I like is that, you've been working in the industry for about a year and a half, I believe, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and so what I like is your outsider's perspective. So for those who don't know, Peter was a very successful, talk show host, podcast host in Latin America for many years. And he would go on all sorts of outdoor adventures and document this and engage with all people of all sorts of, backgrounds. And it was fascinating. As an American, he was in Latin America, and now he's in America, but he's kind of a fish out of water again, because he just entered this industry and he has no training, but he's approaching it from the perspective of someone who's involved in marketing and involved in podcasting and whatnot. So I think it's really interesting to see how you tackle these issues or how you try to think of creative solutions for certain roadblocks in the way of CNA's lives being, let's say, easier.
That reminds me of a spin-off project that we did with Frontline Workers. It was called Short Stories from the Front Line of Long-Term Care. And we got started on this project because I interviewed a gentleman named Bob Spielman, who is an amazing, big heart business development guy who went and became a CNA about 2 years ago. And he documented the entire process for his organization and his facilities. And he worked on the floor about 2 days a week. And I thought it was such an amazing story and what he learned from it. I can remember the first time I chatted with him, it brought me to tears because it brought him to tears. And then the very first thing that we did is we went out and interviewed his 3 or 4 favorite frontline workers from his organization. A couple of the ones that I want to highlight were the interview that we did with Mary Frances and with Amy Jonah. Really, really cool stories that we put on our YouTube. And mainly what the reason we've been doing that is because we want some of these individuals who have a hard job, might be underpaid, to talk about why it is so rewarding. This is not just about financial benefits. There's something about curiosity of continuing to always learn from seniors. I know that that's what popped to me in doing those interviews. And thank you, Cameron, and the team for always editing those and writing up blurbs and getting those sent over to those participants and those guests.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really rewarding experience because, these people have deep compassion and empathy. And as we all know, I mean, that's the biggest, challenge for long-term care is getting, let's say, people in positions of power to care more about our seniors, to kind of feel what these CNAs feel. So seeing their stories and their dedication, we hope will be an inspiration for others to dedicate whatever resources they have to support our seniors and support these CNAs. So it's a very powerful docu series, and we did, the full streams are available on our YouTube channel. But what me and the content team did was we tried to take excerpts of particularly, let's say, engaging points in the videos to just give people a glimpse so that they can then, gain interest and watch the streams when they have time.
I would like, lastly, we're going to kind of transition into what you've been doing with the program called Level Up. But before we go to that, I want to highlight that if you are watching this video or watching this recording and you have a frontline worker who would be a great face, a poster child of your organization to help bring more people into your organization, into your facility from your community, that stay-at-home mom that's looking for her next career and she wants something that's rewarding, or someone who was affected because they saw how important long-term care was for their grandparents when they went into a nursing home, reach out to us. You do not have to be a customer of Experience Care. You don't have to be a guest of the podcast. You don't have to be an executive. Send us a message. We would love to interview cool stories of fascinating individuals working in long-term care. With that said, Cameron, we've talked about the CNA docu-series of me becoming a CNA. We've talked about some great quotes and what some of the podcast guests have talked about. And then we've talked about some of the short stories from the front line. Lastly, Experience Care, about a year ago, started working their tails off to create online training for people in long-term care, users of Experience Care, and now they're building courses for non-Experience Care leaders to be able to be better at their software and better at their workflows without having an implementer or trainer come into the facilities. During
Yeah,
COVID, not only staffing was an issue, but you couldn't go in and train people. So we put
right.
all of this online, and the program is called Level Up. You've been working intimately with me. Tell me a little bit about what you've been on the website, getting people involved. What do the classes look like? And tell me about some of the case studies.
So Level Up is probably what we're most proud of because staffing is one issue, and we try to think at Experience Care, what can we do to alleviate the staffing situation? And as software vendors, what occurred to us is we can provide a free online resource that will save facilities time. They don't have to take people off the floor to train their CNAs. They don't have to take their super users or the nurses who know how to use the software and say, hey, I'm sorry, you're not going to be able to tend to all these residents. You're going to have to help. So this brand new, let's say, agency nurse or this, other CNA, you're going to have to get them caught up on the software. That's hours and hours of time. And the other thing is a lot of nursing homes are struggling with the bottom line. So paying thousands of dollars for an expert to come in to do what an online course could do is really is we didn't think that was fair. So Experience Care, and I say we, I mean I'm proud to be a part of Experience Care. I didn't develop the courses, but yeah, we have courses for people, a variety of roles, DONs, licensed nurses or MDS coordinators, whatever your role is. We have a specific series of courses, and these can be watched anytime, in any environment. There's tests, and the tests are they force you to study the material. They can be taken over and over again. And I did a case study with Erin Blunt, and she told me some amazing stats. So she said it saves her, I believe, 6 to 8 hours every couple of weeks in training, which is a lot for someone in her position. And it's also in terms of compliance, the facilities that have been using Level Up have gone up about 30-40%. The ones that don't use Level Up are around 60 to 70% compliance, and the ones that do, she said, are 96 to 100% compliance.
That's
And
staggering. That's
it's
amazing.
staggering. And it's you think about it and it's like, how is that possible? Well, because really, if you know how to use EHR, if you know how to document care, I mean, everybody's trying to do it, but the more organized you are and the easier it is to do that, the faster and the more efficient and more accurate you will do so. And uh, Level Up is very practical. These when they have these sessions, like learning in person is very valuable in its own way. But when it's something like software, you got to get your hands on, you got to do it. And it's hard for the instructor to go to each individual and say, okay, now you try this, now you try that. With Level Up, the software itself, the program itself is personalizing your experience with the software, and so everybody becomes masterful. Everybody becomes an expert in using the software, and so that is why we have that staggering, shocking jump in compliance.
I'm excited for what's going to be rolled out in the next quarter. I know that the Level Up development team is already building out PDPM courses for anybody, so it doesn't have to be a user or customer of Experience Care. There's a bunch of KPI classes that are being built on there with exams and tests, so that you can pay attention to what are the types of outcomes that you should be paying attention to make sure that it's helping your bottom line. Cameron, thank you so much for sharing, everything about what's been going on in the marketing team. I really wanted to take a moment to pause about what we have been doing for staffing and share those links. Is there anything that you'd like to say on my behalf? Thank you for your time, and this has been really fun. It's been a good year. Hopefully in 2022, the staffing becomes less of an issue with all the amount of effort that's going on in the industry.
Yeah, I mean that's my hope as well, and we'll do our part. At Experience Care, we're going to continue to interview leaders, and whether they're at the CEO level or they're consultants or anybody who has sound advice. Peter's out there. He's contacting them. He's trying to do interviews with them, and we're trying to turn that into digestible content that's will be available for everybody.
Yep.
So.
Thank you. Just to wrap up on what you said, Cameron, Experience Care will be starting to go to the travel shows now that those are coming back. LTC Heroes on our side of things will be going to the Georgia Healthcare Association, the Missouri Healthcare Association, and also we got press credentials to go to HIMSS 2022 over spring break in Orlando. So thank you all to anyone who's watching, listening. If you want us to highlight your work on Frontline stories, please reach out to us. Thanks, Cameron.
Yeah, thank you, Peter.